Welcome to Black Talk. I'm your host, the J.R. Stewart. And tonight we're going to change things up a little bit. And I'm not going to talk politics. We're not going to talk Minnesota. We're not going to talk about the Somalians, the grifters. No, we're going to talk about UFOs tonight. And whether they exist or not. So leave your comment with your opinion. Tell me what you think. So I'm going to share. Let me zip this up. It's a little cool in here. I want to make sure I stay warm. So I'm going to talk about whether they exist or not. I'm going to give you my theories. So early on in life, I've been fascinated with UFOs and space. And actually, even though I'm an engineer by trade and profession, what I really wanted to do growing up was to be an astrophysicist. When I was ninth grade in high school, I was watching PBS. I did that on the Saturdays because they always had interesting guests on. And they had a astrophysicist on there who was talking about what happened shortly after the Big Bang. And they had scientifically theorized what had happened up to about maybe a minute or 2 minutes after the Big Bang. It was amazing how they kind of were able to conceptualize, build theory after theory, and go back and could tell you, what kind of happened. And but the math and the science sort of broke down at that point. I was thinking, what a great job to have, to sit back and be a thinker. Just think about these things. Just ponder. The universe and the creation of the universe and what happened after the Big Bang, the first 30 seconds, the first 10 seconds, the first 5 seconds, the first second. And one of the things that the guest said that really intrigued me, that really hooked me, was he felt as though theoretical astrophysicists were the closest thing to God on Earth. Because basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to understand how and why God made things the way they are. Why is the universe unfolding the way it is? Why does gravity work the way it does? Why does matter and atoms and why do these things work the way they do? Why do the electrons work the way they do? Why is the nucleus of the atom, made of neutrons and protons? And so all these different things, why do atoms have spin or charges? If you break these things down, why is a quark the smallest fundamental particle that we can find? Surely, quarks are made of something. And so these are things that I became interested in. Like, wow, you got a point there. I would love to be able to be one of those guys who sit back and just write books and ponder. In my junior year in high school, I'm talking to a career counselor at school because I was about to graduate. I graduated after my junior year. I graduated a year early. And I'm talking to the career counselor at school. And I told her my desire. I wanted to be a physicist, an astrophysicist. And so she looked up, she showed me this chart, all these different professions on there. And physicist was like third to the bottom. I mean, really, third to the bottom. It's like you have to go to school, get a master's degree, get a PhD, you have to teach, you have to write books. And after all of that, this is kind of what you can expect to earn. I mean, it was a pittance. And then I happened to scan up the chart. I looked up the chart. I'm looking at the bottom of the chart where she's showing me where the physicists are. And then I go up the chart. Of course, at the top of that profession chart were doctors. And then after that, computer programmers, engineers. All the engineering ranks start, there's some other professions, lawyers and lawyers were kind of at the bottom also. It wasn't that great unless you become a high-end lawyer. But anyway, I looked at that and I was like, well, you know what? I like computers. That would be my next choice. Maybe I can look up and look at the stars and read about them. But I don't want to be, eating pork and beans and, living in a sleeping bag, trying to be a thinker. So that kind of shaped my decision to go into engineering. Looking back on it, I wish I had stuck with my first choice. I'm totally fascinated about cosmology and the stars and you know and theoretical stuff. I still read some of the white papers, still keep up with some of the things that are going on in that discipline. Um, so anyway, UFOs. I grew up on Star Trek, Captain Kirk, Spock, the Doctor, and I can't think of the guy who was in charge of engineering and keeping the engines going. It wasn't Scotty. Well, maybe it was Scotty. I'm trying to think. I'm getting old. But anyway, Kirk was the leader of the game, who did everything. I mean, shit, every time they went to a planet, Kirk was the first one getting off the ship to go check things out. Kirk got all the women, all the alien women, the pretty women. He ended up kissing them. So Kirk lived a pretty exciting life, but the whole concept of traveling through space like that, man, just fascinates the imagination. Like, it would be nice if we really could travel like that through space, go visit other worlds, travel throughout the galaxy. I don't think the Enterprise ever left the Milky Way galaxy, so they were exploring the Milky Way galaxy. I also fell in love with Next Generation. To me, Next Generation was closer to the real Navy of how things work. Captain never leaves his ship in the Navy. You may send one of the junior officers out to explore and patrol, but very seldom would you see the captain ever leaving his ship. So Next Generation was more like how the Navy functioned, actually. The rank was was the same. Let me see. I didn't like Deep Space Nine because it was just a station. They didn't move. They didn't go anywhere. People came to them. So I wasn't a really big fan of Deep Space Nine. But Captain Janeway, I enjoyed that one. It was 6 of 9. I mean, I watched that series some. How they got tossed out to the Delta Quadrant of the Milky Way and they trying to work their way back home. The Delta Quadrant is really poor country, so they're fighting their way all the way back home. So, and see if there any other. There was another one called Enterprise that I didn't care. It was like the prequel to Star Trek, and I didn't care for that one either. So it was kind of like the original Star Trek. The captain was kind of like Kirk, but there's only one Kirk. Come on, let's give it a break. There's only one Captain Kirk. So don't give me an imitation, almost Kirk type. So they should have developed a new personality, a whole new scheme of things for that captain. So anyway, those are my. Then of course, I love Star Wars. I like the whole series. But that's not necessarily about space. I mean, they do travel. They have warp drives and hyper. They don't call it warp drive. They call it hyperspace. But jump drives is what they call it. In Star Trek, it was warp drives. In Star Wars, it's hyperdrives. But it's the same thing. It allows you to go faster than the speed of light and to traverse the universe. But in Star Wars, they actually would go to other galaxies, which are hundreds and millions of light years apart from each other. Like, they're traveling all over the place. So they're not limited to just the Milky Way galaxy. And then plus, Star Wars takes place a long time ago. So it was in the past. It's not something that's in the future. Star Trek is in the future. The year 2549. I think they're in the 2500s and stuff. So not that far. This is the year 2026. So another 500 years from now is when basically in the future is where Star Trek sort of takes place. Star Wars takes place in the past. Anyway, so that's my background, how I became fascinated with everything space-wise, and stars and black holes, alien life, possibility of alien life. People still debating it. The Fermi paradox, trying to decide whether other life forms are out there. When we start figuring out a way to discover planets by measuring the wobble of stars, we can kind of figure out based on our own sun and how the planets in this solar system, have a wobble effect on the sun. We can kind of figure out the mass and the orbits of these planets based on that. And once we started discovering planets, of course, our technology got better. Hubble came along, which gave us a much clearer images other than the telescopes that are land-based. Because, on land you have the clouds and air pollution to deal with, but Hubble was out in space, and you get past all of that, and so it gave us some really clear images, and so we still can't see a planet with Hubble, but what we can see is sometimes we can see the dark spot. As the planet is orbiting around the sun, a star, we can see where, we can't really see the dark spot, I take that back. What we see is that area where the planet is crossing the star gets a little darker. So we don't really see the planet itself. We see the effect that it has on the light coming from the star as it dims as it's crossing. And so if you keep seeing it over and over in a rotation, you kind of figure out the size of the star, and the size of the star, then you can measure how long it takes for this planet to rotate and how it's dimming the light of the star, and kind of figure out the orbits. So we start discovering more and more planets. Now we discover there are thousands. Now we suspect that in the Milky Way alone, we think there are about 4 to 5 trillion galaxies out there. That the known galaxies, that's the known universe. 92, 93 billion light years across from end to end. That's what we think it is. Even though we think the universe is only 14 billion, 13.7, 13.8 billion years old, but the size of it due to expansion, although I don't believe in expansion theory, I really don't. But they had to explain why the uniformity of the universe and something called the cosmic background radiation, and how is it so uniform? And they suspect that it was really small and compact, and when the universe expanded, all the matter inside of it expanded also. And but that explains why the temperature of the universe is kind of uniform. Also, what else was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought with talking about the expansion of the universe. Yeah, I don't believe the Big Bang Theory at all. There was some kind of event that maybe happened 13 billion years ago, but I don't think it was a bang. Like we think of an explosion. Things blow up going in all directions. But first of all, if you look at the models of the universe, they all start with a singularity, and they all go in one direction. It's like a tube, a tunnel that goes out and expanding. Well, what happened beyond that? What happened before that? Before the singularity? All you're showing is the singularity being small and then growing out in a tube going outward. And then all this is with the universe that we see. But what happened above that and below that, and what happened behind that? Well, the Bible doesn't really explain that. So that's another reason I'm not a big believer. The other reason I'm not a big believer in the Big Bang Theory, because now we have the James Webb Telescope that seems it's out in space. It's even further out in space than Webb, the JWT, and the James Webb Telescope, the JWT, can see even further. And bigger mirrors that sees not just light, but sees in infrared. So when wavelengths are stretched into infrared, so regular light turns into to infrared light over distance because the light stretches. So the JWT is able to see that, and so it gives us some really great pictures, a lot of more information. One of the things that cosmologists have discovered is that if there was a Big Bang, that it takes time for all this matter to be created, all the for the temperature of the universe to cool down enough where atoms can come together, quarks come together, up quarks, down quarks. There are two types of quarks, and they spin either left or right. So they have different types of quarks, and for them to come together and form neutrons and protons and electrons to make atoms, basically. And atoms clump together, and these fundamental particles clump together and form atoms. And of course, hydrogen is the first element, and then helium, and then the hydrogen comes together and it comes back, and and the friction of it at some point, it compresses enough where you get fusion, where the atoms get so close to each other they fuse, and in that process, they lose a little energy, and the hydrogen turns into helium. As it loses some energy, there's an explosion. So there's a constant battle in a star between hydrogen atoms that are fusing together and forming helium. And when they do, they lose a little bit of their mass, lose a little bit of energy, and in the form of an explosion. And that is what a star is. The gravity keeps it all compact in, but inside there is just explosion after explosion, just trillions of seconds just going off. And then the thing is so massive, though, but the gravity is keeping it all compact so it doesn't blow itself up. Eventually, that's what we call a supernova, where a star blows itself up. And that's basically when it runs out of fuel. So it turns all the hydrogen into helium, all the helium into carbon and oxygen, and turns those into heavier elements. But when it gets to the point where when you get to iron inside a star, that's where it goes super, because it can't produce anything beyond iron, so it stops at iron. So a star will burn its fuel out and make all these different elements up to iron. Once iron is starting to be made inside a star, it goes supernova, it blows up. During that split second that it actually explodes, everything from iron on, gold, silver, plutonium, all the heavier elements are created in that split second, just like that. Because it takes an enormous amount of pressure in order to make the heavier elements. So the gold that you wear around your neck, and the platinum rings that you run, and all those things are made from a star going supernova. And that's something. And when the star explodes, all the elements that were made during its lifetime are exploded and pushed out into the universe. So the oxygen that we breathe now was made inside of a star. Our bodies are made of various elements. Carbon being mostly carbon, some iron, some nickel, some other elements, but all made in a star. The nitrogen that we breathe mixed with oxygen, that's our atmosphere, made inside of a star. So everything around us, everything you see, all the dirt, everything that you eat, made up of atoms, and those atoms were made in a star at some point. So we are star children, really. That's who we are, because we're made inside of a star. All the elements that make us and make everything around us was made in stars. So let's get to the UFOs. Growing up, man, I was a big UFO, fascinated with UFOs. I followed the stories from Roswell and some others, all these UFO encounters, people claiming to be kidnapped and aliens doing experiments on them. I was a big believer. You couldn't convince me otherwise that UFOs didn't exist. Lately, I've become a disbeliever. Sorry to say, it became hard to believe, to be a believer. And I will explain why I'm not a big believer anymore. One is because of the photos. All the clear photos of UFOs flying around, when you examine them and really look at them, you find out that they've been photoshopped. Just about every one of them. It's like, can we not get one clear picture of a UFO that's not photoshopped, that's not fake, that's not digitally enhanced? And then the ones that people claim are legit or the real thing, all fuzzy. It's just blobs of light moving around. It's like, that's a UFO. Really? How can you tell? How can you tell that from just some blob of light? And even when the military, here lately, last 3-4 years, the military has been turning over some of their evidence of UFOs, or they call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. First of all, they get off the plane and they're carrying like a 50-pound dumbbell. It looks like a 50-pound dumbbell. It's like, that's a hard drive from the camera. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. That's the hard drive? That big clunky thing? We paid $40 million for an F-16. You guys can't put a solid-state drive in there? I have let me see if I can fill one out, find one. All right, let me see. I have a solid-state drive here. Yeah, here we go. Look at the size of this thing. Look how thin it is. It's not heavy. And this is a 16 terabyte drive. And I'm seeing pilots come out with this, huge big clunker hard drive. I'm like, what in the hell? And then the pictures on the F-16 are fuzzy also. You can kind of see the outline of a Tic Tac. It kind of, it's like there's a Tic Tac, it looks like a Tic, but the picture is still kind of fuzzy. And they switch on the infrared, and it's still not much better. Like, people walk around with smartphones with 30, 40, 50 megapixel on their smartphones. Maybe we went back to the SD days. 720 by 360, by 340, 320, whatever SD is. Before they got into 1P and 4P and all these higher definitions, that still seems to be clearer than the pictures we get off these $40 million advanced jets today. Those pictures are all fuzzy and can't make them out. So until I see some clear evidence, everybody's walking around with smartphones. And if these alien ships are flying around the way people report they are, then we should be able to get somebody with their smartphone to get a clear shot of one of these ships and then post it somewhere so the rest of us can take a look at it. The other thing, watch interviews of people like a Bob Lazar and others who said they worked at S4 and they've actually seen the ships that we've collected, 9, 10, or 11 of them supposedly we have in hangars, trying to reverse engineer it, and we haven't been able to quite figure it out how they all work. You kind of know conceptually how they work. We just can't build the technology to recreate it. That's the problem. The technology is so far advanced and ahead of us. It would be like if you went back 500 years to the 1500s. And you had all of the gold, all the silver, all of the wealth of the world. And you got the smartest people, just gathered them up. And you gave them a computer, a tablet, an old IBM 286 or 386 computer. And he said, build me one of these. Or he just gave him a car. He said, build me one of these. You have unlimited money, unlimited wealth. Take and use as much money as you need to. You got the smartest people in the world. They wouldn't be able to do it. Build me a plane, build me a ship. Just not today's technology. They couldn't do it. First of all, they couldn't figure out the computer system. The chips would just be totally above their head. They wouldn't understand even how the chip works, how a transistor works, how electricity works. They wouldn't be able to figure it out. So it's kind of where we are. But the other thing is that these ships are too small. They're 30, 40 feet in diameter. Okay, decent size for a couple of people to get inside them and fly around. But when you talk about traveling the universe, the closest star system to us, solar system to us, is those Proxima planets. Proxima A, Proxima Prime B. It's about 4 light years away. It's about 28 trillion miles. Last time I checked, there's no AutoZone. There's no Pet Boys. along the way. This ship breaks down on the 28 trillion miles you got to travel. This ship breaks down, you're SOL. You're going to die in space. On top of that, they describe, some people have drawn it and described the layout. And they sketch it. There's no galley. Like, okay, where do they cook the food? There's no bathrooms? Like, wait a minute. 28 trillion mile trip and there's no bathroom in that little bitty thing? It would be like if you were in an F-16 jet plane. You want to, fly around the world, fly to China, Japan, from New York. You're going across Europe the long way. You wouldn't make it. The best thing to do is to put the fighter plane, on a ship, aircraft carrier, float the thing to its destination, somewhere near, and then fly from there. That's what aircraft carriers do. I don't think aliens would do the same thing. They would have some really massive mothership. They would have Battleship Galactica, I think was the name of the show. They had these huge fleets, and they had the ships inside of it. Even in Star Wars, same thing. They build big, massive transport ships, and they had the fighter planes inside of it when they launched. So no bathroom, no galley. One of them that God said that we retrieved, and one of the aliens survived. There were 3 on board. 2 of them died. One of them died in the crash. One died on the operating table because he was injured. We tried to operate on him, but didn't understand the physiology, so ended up dying. The 3rd one survived, and they ate some kind of fruit, which they had enough supplies for that one alien to eat for about 3 months. So that lets me know that you only had a 1 month supply. If you had 3 aliens on board, then you only had a 1 month supply of food. Because when the other 2 died, the one that survived only had 3 months of food. And it was some kind of fruit. And they did their best to try to get the seeds and grow it, or modify some of our fruit to be similar. And somehow it didn't quite work out. It was, the way they described the fruit was kind of like a mango, kind of that kind of texture, but with a different taste. And so really this alien had to end up adapting to the fruit that we ate. And they said it lived for about 5 years before it was able to build a radio that was able to contact the motherland. Now, this alien wasn't from Proxima, wasn't one of the close solar systems. No. It was from a solar system 70 light years away. That's almost 500 trillion miles away. If you built a radio and the radio signal traveled at the speed of light, it would take 500 years for the signal to reach its home world. But they're able to talk real time. He's able to talk, and they're able to, in the home world, basically negotiated some deal where they would come and retrieve him and retrieve the bodies of the 2 aliens who died. Once again, I'm not believing the story, only because I've gotten too smart. I understand how difficult it is to accelerate in space. It takes a great deal of energy. Generally, we accelerate satellites or a moon module, and then we cut the engines. We just let it float through space. Because if you try to do the Star Wars thing and just power up the engines and just go, keep the engines on the whole time, one, you run out of fuel. You won't be able to carry enough fuel to get to your destination. So you have just enough fuel to get you into orbit and to get you started. Then you kill the engine. You get to the moon. You circle it, or you go down with the lander. You come back up with the lander. You get back in your ship. You have just enough fuel to accelerate you once again towards Earth, then you cut the engine, and then you just float back. That's how space travel is done. A lot of it is done with just using the gravity of planets. So we send satellites out, even though they have nuclear proportion. So I'm getting tongue-tied now. They have nuclear engines on board that propel them, and those engines don't run continuously. They run just enough to give the satellite a boost, to help it change direction. Then the engine stops, and they use the gravity assist from the planet to slingshot it to speed it up. So I'm supposed to believe that these aliens who are 70 light years away, 500 trillion miles, and to make that trip in that little small ship with 3 people in it, with a month worth of supply, food supply, and that they were able to build a radio with our technology that you could have a real-time conversation, as if they're right next door to you. 70 light years away. When our radio signals would take 70 years to travel there. And then they get the message, and then they send a reply back, take another 70 years before we heard it. We'd all be dead. 140 years have passed. So I don't believe that story. I'm really on the fence about what I believe the Roswell story. Something may have crashed out there. They may have retrieved something. The Air Force says it was a weather balloon with test dummies. There are people that are convinced there was aliens. We'll see. The truth will come out at some point. And then there are those who say, well, these aliens the aliens that are here didn't really travel from far away. They're from the future. And they're coming back now to make sure we don't blow the planet up. Something really bad happens in the future, and they're coming back now to make sure that undo it, so they're time travelers. And somehow we're supposed to believe that we have grown from being supposedly evolving from apes and monkeys, which would never happen. But we were smaller. The early man, the first Homo erectus, were only about 4 feet, 4.5 feet, 5 feet at the most. The women were about 4.5 feet, the men were about 5 feet. Small people. So we've grown to the size that we are now. Women are generally somewhere, 5.5 feet to 6 feet, and men are 5.5 feet to upwards 6.5 feet. Generally, the average man's about 6 feet tall. The average woman's probably about 5'4", 5'5", 5'6". So somewhere in the middle of the 5-foot range. And of course, we have people taller and shorter, but on average, that's kind of where it falls out. So we've evolved to be taller, faster, stronger. But now, all of a sudden in the future, we come back as EVs, grays, small. Somehow we lost our thumb. We only have 4 fingers with no thumb. We have a little web in between the fingers. Where did the web come from? Are we swimming? Are we in the water? We're Aquaman now? Big eyes. You can't even put sunshades on things, they're so big. And the eyes are black. We don't even have pupils anymore. We just have a black covering over them. I guess that's your sunshade. And the EVs can't be out of the sun too long. They sunburn easily. So they're being shade covered up. But they're only about 3.5 feet tall. When we shrunk in time, in the future, that's what we evolved to? These big heads? And really, here's the other thing why I don't believe the EVs are real, the way that we describe them. They have really big heads, bigger than our heads. That's the brain power they have. They don't have to talk anymore. Although they can talk, they can speak. They don't have to because they have telepathy. They speak in their minds. And in nature, when you don't need something, nature takes it away from you. Oh no, yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like at one point, all Homo erectus started in Africa, they were brown skinned to protect them from the sun. They were black people. When they migrated to Asia and they migrated to Europe, colder weather, less sunlight, the ultraviolet rays are weak. They lost the melanin in their skin. They didn't use it, didn't need it. It gave them no advantage to survive being dark skinned. So generation after generation, they got lighter and lighter. Their ability to produce vitamin D lessened because they got vitamin D from the food source. Vitamin D is essential for your health. But Africans need vitamin D because they don't have much vitamin D in the food. So sunlight provides their vitamin D. The melanin provides their vitamin D. The body produces their vitamin D to keep them healthy. But the ones who migrate to Asia and Africa, in Europe, ultraviolet rays are weaker. They didn't need the melanin. They ate a lot of fish. They live in the coastal areas. They got the vitamin D from the food. Don't use it, you lose it. And that's just the way it is throughout the world. So now I'm supposed to believe that somehow we're not going to need our height and we're not going to need our size in the future. So we're going to lose it. We're just going to become smaller than what we were initially. We started out 4 feet, 5 feet tall as Homo erectus, and now we're down to 3.5 feet in the future. We're on the average size from 5.5 feet to 6.5 feet. Now we're gonna shrink down to, and then on top of it, they have no clothes. You ever notice that the EVs have no clothes on? They just have a little body. You can't tell if it's a male or female. Everybody's just, I guess, unisex. They grow babies in test tubes, like Robin Harris would say, test tube babies. So yeah, that's another thing about this. That's really, just can't buy into the whole EV thing in the grays. And then we have the praying mantis people that look like insects, praying mantis. We have the lizard people that say they live in the tunnels under LA. All the sewage tunnels, they're down there in the sewage tunnels. You have the tall whites. They also they're about 6.5 feet to 7 feet tall, men and women. Very thin. And then you have the Nordic aliens, they're white too. The tall whites and Nordic aliens are white, but the Nordics look more like average people, average sized people, except they're extremely white. They're almost albino. They're very white. And they supposedly have integrated themselves into Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Finland and Switzerland. Cold areas where there's very little sunlight, snows 10 months out of the year. Like in Denmark, they get 6 months of constant sunlight, but it's very weak sunlight. And then it comes up for an hour or two a day, and it sets back. It stays on the horizon. It doesn't really set. It doesn't go below the horizon. So it comes up on the horizon, then from east to west, and then it just stays there on the horizon until the next day. And then they get nightfall for 4 or 5 months out of the year. Just night, no sun. So you get a bunch of daylight, you get a bunch of sunlight, night light. And so supposedly the Nordics are mixed in with them, integrated in with them. The $64,000 question is, why would aliens want to come to this damn planet? All the planets that you have to pass to get here, all the other galaxies. In these galaxies, our galaxy is just an average-sized galaxy. The Milky Way is an average-sized galaxy with 400 billion stars. Half those stars, about 200 billion of them, have planets. And you're passing up all these galaxies to get to the Milky Way from 70 light years away. All the places you can go, all the things you could do and see. Why would you come to Earth? In these little small, tiny-ass ships, if they break down, and here's another reason I'm skeptical. What's the number one reason that we're able to capture a UFO? In case you don't know, it's lightning strikes. Somehow they're flying through the clouds. There's a little inclement weather, little rain, little lightning hits it. Bam! Ship goes down. We have airplanes that are not sophisticated, can't travel from galaxy to galaxy, can't even travel to the moon, which is the closest satellite to us, can't even run out of space. They get hit by lightning all the time and somehow survive. But the aliens cannot build a ship that can go trillions of miles on a month worth of food supply with no bathroom. You can engineer that and come to our planet. But once you get here, all it takes is a lightning strike to bring your ship down. And then, of course, when it goes down, the government is there to retrieve it, suck it up, pick it up, bring it to the lab and try to reverse engineer it. Supposedly we have 11 ships, but the Russians have some and the Chinese have some. And the governments are keeping this under wrap. We've gone through the plutonium bomb. That was the first nuclear bomb that we built. We learned how to split plutonium. And that was the first bomb. The first two bombs dropped on Japan were plutonium. Since then, we have now moved to hydrogen, lead, neutron bombs. The neutron bombs basically kill people but don't destroy the building. That big explosion and the big cloud, that doesn't happen with a neutron bomb. It just neutrinos flood. All the people die in that radius in the blast zone, but the buildings stay up. So they can bury everybody and everybody you can move new people into the buildings. Lead bombs are the same way. They explode. They're not as powerful as the H bomb, but they're clean. There's no radiation afterwards. So now we can blow things up with nukes without having to worry about the radiation blowing into your area of the planet and killing you, or killing your neighbors, or the neighbors of your enemy. Somehow we can do that, but we can't reverse engineer a ship that can't survive a lightning strike. That's basically the story you're telling me you want me to believe. So I don't believe that. If I'm able to build a ship that can travel trillions of miles through space on 1 month of food supply with no bathroom, that means I need to get there fairly early. This needs to be a day trip because I don't know if my bladder can go 2 or 3 days, a month, a year without a bathroom. In fact, at this age, I know I can't. Hell, a couple of hours would be a stretch for me. And don't bring any children along with you with no bathroom. You definitely have some trouble. So when they sketch these ships out, they're way too small. Way too small. And but if it was a larger ship that flew into our solar system, we have now tracked every meteorite, every asteroid in our solar system. Everything that's in the Oort cloud, that's right outside of our Mars, between Mars and Jupiter. Trillions of rocks and asteroids that float around there. And then further out, the ones that have the really long orbits, like Halley's Comet, the comets that sit out there really far out, really cold ice giants. Millions upon millions of them that sit out there. Every now and then one gets pulled into the gravity well of the sun, and they get a very funky orbit, and we see them. Some of them come to Earth, some of them crash into other planets on the moon. And we track all of those things. We do every little piece of rock that's of any decent size, we've tracked it. Computers keep up with it. They know the orbits of it. They can tell you just how close these things are going to come to Earth, near pass, close pass. Because that way, if something's going to come crashing into our planet, which we think is what killed the dinosaurs, we want to know in advance. It takes time for those things to get here, usually months or years, and so we have time to work a plan out, to blow it up or to land something on, try to with some rockets and try to change the trajectory, change the orbit of it. When those space rocks came in outside of the solar system, Hula, I don't know the strange names they gave them, but there's been 3 of them so far. They named them 1, 2, and 3. They look like cigars. They float and revolve funny. They speed up. They slow down. Everybody's thinking that they're under some kind of intelligent control because they don't really operate like meteors or asteroids in our solar system. They fly in, and then eventually the sun the gravity of the sun pulls them in, and they slingshot out just as quickly as they came in. But it takes months. They're in our solar system for months before they get to the sun, or near the sun. And every time they come in, we know it. We track them. So if something was large enough to be a mother ship with thousands of an aircraft carrier, the average aircraft carrier, even the old ones, the Enterprise, I think they retired the Enterprise, but take the Enterprise. Take the John F. Kennedy. I mean, the JLF-4 is the latest one. I think the Ronald Reagan one is going to be the next one. And probably the third one of the newer class, the JLF-4 class, is going to be actually named after Trump, believe it or not. I think that's what he's pushing for, to get a carrier named after him. Like the Kennedy Center, and I think they named a boulevard after him. But anyway, I digress. For a ship, for an aircraft carrier, they average about 6,000 people on the aircraft carrier. They're floating cities. And they have 5,000 people on this aircraft carrier and carry 100 planes. 100. And they have a carrier group which consists of 2 submarines, all kind of frigates and destroyers. So when the aircraft carrier comes to your neck of the woods, it's coming with 13 other ships. And about 2 or 3 of those, one of them is a fuel ship, because all the ships got to be refueled, except the carrier, because it runs off as nuclear power. But the rest of the ships are diesel power. And 2 of those are for supplies. Food and other gear, they're constantly floating back and forth, to resupply the ships. The submarines are there just for other protection. And the carrier group protects the aircraft carrier. They surround it, they float with it, and if you come near it, they'll shoot you down, and if they can't shoot you down, then the aircraft carrier itself has planes and weapons on it to take care of a threat. So that's why it's damn near impossible to sink an American aircraft carrier today, a modern one. But with that you would expect that kind of assembly for aliens. They'll come with a really big, massive ship with smaller ships inside. They have to have supply ships to go back and forth with supplies to feed everybody. It would take a large number of aliens to run this thing. But I'm supposed to believe that this little small 30, 40-foot ship with no bathroom and no kitchen made a 500 trillion mile trip. But then once they got here, lightning brought it down. Here's the other thing. If you were able to travel at the speed of light, forget that it would take 500 years to get here. If you were to hit just a speck of dust, 1 grain of sand, go to the beach, you know how small a grain of sand is. A pinch of salt, not even a full pinch, because a pinch is what you can kind of put in between your fingers. Take a pinch, rub it a little bit till you get down to 1 grain of salt, just 1. Traveling at light speed, if you were to hit that grain of salt, 1 grain of sand in space, 1 little speck of dust, not a whole meteorite, not a whole asteroid, not something big, no, just Something that small. You hear it traveling at the speed of light. That thing would travel through your ship. And you would implode. That'd be the end of you. And there's all kind of dust out there in space. Big rocks, small rocks, we call them asteroids. Meteorites. They come into the Earth's atmosphere all the time. Those shooting stars that you see. You look up and for about a second and a half, you see something light up and all of a sudden it's gone. Those are meteorites coming into the atmosphere. And they burn up from friction. There's billions and trillions of that stuff out there. We get it all the time. The moon gets it. Other planets gets it. Our space station, the ISS, that's floating out in space, orbiting the Earth, it goes about 17,000 miles an hour. And generally, the space dust doesn't really bother it too much. They go out there and they clean. They have to clean the stuff off. But if it was a rock the size of a golf ball, if they encountered one of those in this path, if they could maneuver it out of the path, they're escape pods. They'd get in and jump to freedom. Space is dangerous business. And there's radiation out there. The loss of gravity causes your bones to shrink and your muscles to atrophy. When astronauts spend 3 to 6 months up in space, they can't even stand up. They're carrying them off those modules. They can't even stand up initially. They just can't even support their weight on normal gravity. But we're supposed to believe these aliens with big heads, small necks. Your neck has to have muscles in it. And it has to be strong enough for you to balance your head on it and keep your head upright. Notice that babies have big heads, but they have weak muscles in the neck. And what do you do when you pick a baby up? You have to hold his head. Because else the head would just flop around and injure the baby. So when you have to hold the body and the head for newborns. Because their necks are not strong enough to hold their big, massive heads. Big head babies. Especially those 7 to 8 pound babies. When they big heads. I feel sorry for the women who have to deliver them. Especially if they try to deliver it through the natural means. You better take that C-section with a baby that big. But these aliens have even bigger heads. But they have pencil necks. You look at it, it's like, wait a minute. Your neck is not strong enough to hold up that big head. Your head is twice as big as the average human. Supposedly all this brain power you have up there. But the brain is heavy. There's nothing light about a brain. They're heavy and they burn a lot. The brain burns more energy in your body than any other organ. And they have heads twice as big as ours. Brains twice as the size of ours, being held up on a little pencil neck. With no clothes on. Can't tell if it's a boy or a girl. Male or female. I guess in the future, everybody can just since you can name your sex now, you do whatever you want to be. I guess everybody's unisex, and you just, pick a sex. Pick whatever you want, be called. But the other thing that perplexed me is that you would think somebody would come along with a black alien. Just one. You have the lizards, you have the praying mantis, you have the grays, you have the big head folks, you have the Nordics, you have the tall whites, but you have no black aliens. None. No Jerry Curl dripping, no dread wearing, no cornbread wearing aliens. Come on. Surely. If anybody would want to come here, I would think that black aliens would want to come and hang out and party. See how we do it here. Have a good time. They probably want to partake with a good outdoor barbecue and some South Dallas Snapple, aka English 40 ounce of English Old English. No black alien, nowhere. I've yet to see one person describe a black alien. And then everybody's been abducted, aliens do all these experiments on people. Why in the world, if you were an alien kidnapping people, why would you kidnap them from some developed country? Somewhere they're going to be missed. Somewhere they have family. Bring attention to yourself. First of all, you go out to the country, to the rural areas, some of these undeveloped countries, go to Africa. You snatch up in Africa, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to miss them. If somebody does miss them, nobody, who cares? Julu went to the jungle to look for some food. He didn't come back. Oh well. People just assume that the lions got him. Some wild animal got him. He joined the ancestors. But no, they kidnapping people from the city. People in their cars, driving down the highway. All of a sudden, they back in their car on the side of the road, and 6 hours have been lost. And through hypnosis, regression hypnosis, they now recall what happened to them when they were on the mother's ship, being experimented on. But no one has ever seen one of these mother ships, taking pictures of it. All these smartphones out there with cameras, recording everything. People out there taking selfies. But yeah, we don't have a good picture of the mothership. People being snatched up and taken hostage and doing experiments on it. And there are no black aliens. So this is why I'm having a hard time believing that if you have the ability to travel that long distance with no bathroom, small amount of food, and get to a planet, I'm sure lightning would not bring my ship down. On top of that, that would be like us getting into, Lexus or Benz, Bentley, and driving to an anthill to hang out with the ants. People that are that advanced need to be like ants to them. Ants have structure, they have order, they have societies. They go out and hunt food, they take care of their babies, they take care of the queen. They have guard ants. They go to battle with other ant civilizations. They grow food, they grow fungus underground to feed their population. Hell, the ants are more advanced in some African countries who can't feed themselves. The ants have more sense to be able to grow food for their colony when African nations can't feed themselves, have babies they can't take care of. The ants make sure they can take care of all their babies. And despite that, we don't want to get in our car, go drive out to, let's say, West Texas, where there are anthills everywhere, and hang out with the ants. They have the big ants out there, the army ants, the red ants. Not the little tiny sugar ants that we get here in the city. Now, if you're an academic, you may want to go out there and study them, do some research. I can see maybe aliens coming here to study us. But they don't want to hang out with us. They don't want to party with us. They don't want to interact with us. We have nothing that they want. People, they come here for gold because they need our minerals, to fix it up. That's ridiculous. You have planets where they rain diamonds. The universe is full of gold. Every time a star explodes, trillions of tons of gold are pushed out. Gold, silver, platinum, all the heavy metals are created at that point in supernova and pushed out into the universe. There's tons of that stuff out there. There's no shortage. Right here in our own solar system. You go out there and get a small asteroid, not very large, half mile across. If you're able to grab it and pull it back to Earth, put it in orbit and mine it, the value of that thing and the minerals and stuff and so you'll find inside is worth trillions upon trillions of dollars. $1 trillion will be the most valuable thing on the planet. That's how resource rich. If you have trillions upon trillions of these asteroids out there, and just one of the small ones is worth $1 trillion in today's standard. That's how much gold and silver and metal, precious metals are out there. We say rare earth minerals here, but there's nothing rare about the minerals out in space. They're everywhere. And we call it rare, but we still have quite a bit to build batteries, to build our computers. And we have to start digging deeper to get it, but it's still available. But there's no shortage out in space. So the physics just don't add up anymore for me. Maybe I've just gotten too smart. Maybe it's just better to be naive and still believe in space travel and aliens, and that one day they're going to come to our planet, land, say we come in peace. Boy, everybody's going to celebrate. We're going to be partying, hanging out with the aliens. They're going to teach us all these new things. Maybe answer some questions about God and the universe. Yeah, not going to happen. Even if there's alien life out there, which I believe there is, they're stuck just like we're stuck like Chuck. We'll never be able to build a ship that allows us even to go to Proxima Prime B, 4 light years away, 28 trillion miles. We'll never be able to build a ship that allows us to travel that far, put people in it. At our current rocket speed, it will take 1 million years to get there. And if somehow we build faster engines, and we were to go 1/10 the speed of light, just 1/10, not the full speed of light, just 1/10, it would still take 170 years to get there. You have to build a generation ship. So the people who are on it are going to die on that ship. They're going to have children. The children are going to die on that ship. And the grandchildren and great-grandchildren will actually make it to the destination. When they get there, they may or may not find a planet that's inhabitable. But they wouldn't have enough fuel to then turn around and come back. So it's a one-way mission. If you don't find a planet, if Proxima B does not support human life, then those people are going to die. And once they get there, after living in space that long, with no gravity, if they got to the planet, they wouldn't be able to stand up. The bones would just be crushed. Just trying to stand up. The organs would be mush. Aliens would go through the same issue coming heading our way. So if there's other life forms out there, which I believe there is, we have 7 trillion galaxies in the known universe. Is what we can see. Each one of those galaxies, anywhere from 2 to 400 billion stars in them. Based on the Milky Way, half the stars have planets. So you're talking about trillions upon trillions of planets out there. There's bound to be other intelligent life out there. But they're stuck just like we're stuck. We're so spread out. And I had to theorize, which I've done, and guess why God did it that way. Because if we were too close to each other, can get access to each other, guess what? We fight each other, just like we do here on this planet. When ant colonies grow and get too close to each other, what do? They fight. Ants and termites fight all the time over territory because they occupy the same space sometimes. People fight. We get too close to each other, we fight. That's natural for us. So fighting and war is part of nature. Not just our nature, it'll be part of their nature also. So the best way for life to develop and evolve is for us to be separated and can't reach each other. That gives us the best chance. If not, if we were to get in a ship and fly over to somebody else's planet, we take our nukes with us, and we just start dropping nukes on them from space. We don't have to land on the damn planet. We want to destroy you. Or they can do the same to us. Anyway, that's my time, people. I'm actually a few minutes over. So, but I can do that because I own the show. I am the show. But thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, spread the word. I'm trying to grow the channel. We're here every night, Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. I take the weekends off. That's where I build the smaller Black Talk videos that you see. What else? Am I leaving anything out? No. We will be doing a couple of health shows next week. We did one this week. I'm going to try to do at least one or two during the week. So we'll probably do 2 next week. And like I said, my wife is working on building a practice, a longevity practice, help people figure out how to live longer, reverse your health conditions. I like to see people reverse their health conditions, get off these pills and medicines that are killing us for diabetes, blood pressure, weight loss. I mean, even the people on the GLP-1 synthetic hormone. You come off of it and guess what? You gain weight. And part of the reason you gain weight because you artificially put this stuff in your body is your body just stops producing it. It's like insulin. Keep injecting yourself with insulin, your pancreas just stops producing it. And then when you stop injecting yourself, your body's not producing it, then you don't know how to stop eating. You never get satiated. You just continue to eat. And you gain all the weight back, plus some. So anyway, we'll talk about that next week, on how to reverse some of these conditions. And like I said, as soon as my wife gets her new practice up and started, I'll start giving you guys information on how to contact her. And I'm still going to work and negotiate a free consultation for everyone who watches the Black Talk show. When you reach out to her and her partners, just use my name and say, Lee Jimmy Stewart sent me. And that consultation, they first want to be free. So anyway, that's my time, people. I'm going to get out of here. I actually have some video editing to go do, so I'll be up for another couple of hours. But everybody stay safe, stay warm, and be smart. Thank you very much.